When we first read the four gospel accounts of the resurrection, they can seem to contradict each other. But what we need to do is we need to read the gospel accounts of the resurrection of Jesus alongside each other so that we get a full picture of what actually happened on that day. You know, it can sometimes seem impossible, can't it, that we believe in the account of what happened on Easter Sunday. Surely people say it's not possible. Surely it can't happen. How could that be true? Friends, to the women who went to the tomb that morning, to the disciples, even to the guards at the tomb who were guarding the stone so that nobody came and stole the body during the night, they could never be able to conceive or comprehend what had taken place. But that doesn't mean that it didn't happen as Scripture records. 4 weeks ago, many of us would not believe that coronavirus would affect us in the way that it has. Few of us knew terms such as social distancing and self-isolation, shielding. We didn't really understand a few weeks ago what those words really meant. None of us realised that our movements would be so restricted. However, that doesn't mean that it's not happened. It is just that nobody had thought it to be possible. Tom Wright says that there are 4 words that jump out of the testimony of the first Easter Sunday. He says those words are fear, surprise, confusion, and astonishment. Friends, I don't think that we can really understand what happened on Easter Sunday if we don't believe in the supernatural. Let's talk about the natural things that we struggle with to do with Easter Sunday. First of all, fear. The guards were outside the tomb. A Pilate's seal had been put on the tomb so that if it was broken, people would know that somebody had come and stolen Jesus' body. Neither of those things happened. But to those women walking to that tomb, they must have been full of fear. What would they find when they got there? How would they get past the guards? Would they even let them go and treat Jesus' body with the spices that they had brought? But you see, the supernatural side shows us that there were angels there. And the angels said to the women, "Do not be afraid. Do not be full of fear." Of course, in the natural again, the women would have been surprised. We're told in one of the Gospels that as they walked along with the spices towards the tomb, they discussed with each other who would move the stone for them. Imagine their surprise when supernaturally there was a violent earthquake and an angel of the Lord came down and moved the stone at the entrance to the tomb. Natural and supernatural, surprise and the supernatural amazement of what actually happened. What about this? The confusion. Well, naturally, they were confused. We're told in Luke's Gospel that when they entered the tomb, they did not find a body. Of course, supernaturally, there is an angel again who says to the women, "Why do you look for the living among the dead?" And then what about their astonishment? It's natural that they were trembling and bewildered. And it says that the women fled from the tomb. They said nothing to anyone because they were afraid. The disciples did not believe the women when they came back with this message of having been told that Jesus had risen from the dead. They didn't believe their words. And it says in Luke's Gospel that their words seemed to them like nonsense. But supernaturally, there is something amazing going on. Go quickly and tell his disciples. Friends, if this account was made up, if somebody had sat down and thought, how can I write this down to convince people? They would not have let the women be the first ones to encounter the risen Christ. A woman's testimony in those days was not it was not graded at all. It was not accepted at all. The women who left early with the spices to cover his body, they didn't take them towards the tomb saying, well, if Jesus is still dead, then we'll use them. Or if Jesus has risen from the dead, we won't be needing these spices. There was no way that they were expecting to find what they did. Before the discovery of the risen Jesus, the disciples were in lockdown, if you like. They were behind locked doors, afraid that they might be the next ones on the authorities' lists to arrest and crucify them. Remember a lovely story that I came across a little while ago about the actor Kevin Bacon. He said that on one occasion he had his 6-year-old son with him, and they watched the film that Kevin Bacon was in called Footloose for the first time together. The boy said to his dad, "Dad, that was really cool. How you jumped up on the roof and swung from the rafters. How did you do that?" "Well, son," Kevin Bacon replied, "I didn't actually do that part. A stuntman did." "What's a stuntman, Dad?" his son asked. "Oh, that's someone who dresses like me and does the things that I can't do, things that are too dangerous." "Oh, well, what about that part in the movie where you spin around on a gym bar and land on your feet?" persisted the boy. "How did you do that?" "Well, son, that was the stuntman again, not me. He's really good at gymnastics." "Oh," said the son, and then there was a long pause, and he said to his dad, "Dad, just what did you do in the movie?" And Bacon sheepishly replied, "I got all the glory." Friends, Jesus came. Our God isn't somebody who is after all the glory without the sacrifice. He gets involved in our lives. And he did the hard work on the cross and was raised back to life to prove who he really is. During the American Civil War, a farmer was called up to fight. He was deeply concerned about leaving his family. His wife had died some years earlier, and there would be no one to support and take care of the children while he was away. The day before he was to leave for the army, his neighbour came to visit him. He said to the astonished farmer, "I've been thinking, you're needed here at home, and so I've decided to go to fight in your place." The farmer was so overwhelmed that for a few moments he was completely speechless. The offer seemed too good to be true. He grasped the hand of the young man and praised God for his friend, who was willing to go in his place as his substitute. The young man went to the front lines and he fought bravely, but his life was ended when he was shot and killed in the first battle. When the farmer heard the news, he immediately saddled his horse and rode out to the battlefield. After searching for some considerable time, he found the body of his friend. He arranged to have it buried in the churchyard near the spot where the two of them had stopped to talk after the services. On a piece of marble that was to be the headstone of the grave, He carved an inscription with his own hands. It was roughly done, but with every blow of the hammer on the chisel, tears fell from his eyes. Many villagers wept as they read the brief but touching inscription. He simply wrote, "He died for me." When Jesus was on a Roman cross, he died for you and me. But his resurrection makes it possible for us to be set free from sin. It's as if he took our place and the punishment for our sin was all on him. It says in the Bible, God demonstrates his own love for us in this. While we were still sinners, Christ died for us. The risen Christ gives us the opportunity to share in that victory every day of our lives. The Apostle Paul writes in Scripture, "If Christ has not been raised from the dead, then our preaching is useless, and so is your faith." Friends, if the events of Easter Sunday didn't happen, we may as well give up. But Christianity is a religion about the empty tomb. The resurrection was essential because it proved that Jesus wasn't just a good man, he was God in human form. But if there is one thing that confirms that all this really did happen, it is the testimony of transformed lives. Those disciples and followers of Jesus who were in lockdown had their lives completely transformed from this point on, and so can we. Our hope is real. Our hope is alive. Our hope is life-changing. Indeed, hope has a name. His name is Jesus.